And my co-host from the Political Matrix, my other show, he asks, where does India fit in this equation?
Okay, so India is very important, very interesting because y- before U.S. tried to loop in India in the Quad, so-called the Quad of democracy, India, Japan, Australia, U.S. to contain China, right? So India did have a um, did have a stake in joining Quad because India had a tense relationship with China because of border issues, and at the same time, India also want to gain access to the U.S. market and U.S. technology, and
Which doesn't
hopefully,
that goes into that issue that we were talking about earlier, which it would have took us that would have been like a whole hour discussion on its
yeah,
own,
yeah,
talking about the whole Kashmir thing. So
yeah,
that's why I
but
was like, we can get
yeah,
into that another time.
but the way US works is expect everyone to be its loyal client state, like a puppy dog,
Hmm.
like UK or Australia, right?
Yeah.
And even Japan, pliant client state. But India is a big power. India has ancient civilization. They're very proud power. They're
Hmm.
proud of their civilization. They're proud of their heritage. They see themselves as a great power. They don't want to be treated as nobody's palm, right? They don't want to
Hmm.
be United States foot soldier. They don't want to be these U.S. proxy. They have their own national interest. So that's what they're doing right now in the Ukraine crisis. They're sticking with Russia because Russia can provide with cheap energy. What can you U.S. provide, right? Show me the money. At the end of the
Hmm.
day, you got to show me the money, and they're making the decisions based on their own national interests, which is continue to get the cheap energy from Russia. Um, I mean, what does U.S. offer except like the talks of democracy and freedom, right? I
Yeah.
mean, India already have
We're
election.
gonna we're gonna see you guys some more call center work.
Yeah, I
I
mean, like,
mean, and I look at it also. India's looking at it like this. China and Russia are on the same page. North Korea is also. And Pakistan, it plays its own little weird games. And then you got Turkey, which Turkey's a wild card also.
yep.
Does India want to say, you know what, I'm going to be the only one over here that's going to sell out and be, America's little puppet? What happens to India at that point? Then all of its neighbors all turn against India. So I'm like, that's
Yep.
not really. I'm like, if you want to do business with them, you got to make it worth their while, right?
Yeah, yeah, and India, they also want to be shown respect, right? Because they feel they are a great power. You can't treat us like your
It's
little
literally
little
one of the
pawn.
oldest civilizations,
Yeah,
continuous civilizations.
but right now, look at what United States is doing. That's exactly what US is doing. So like, how dare you? How dare you deviate from our stands, right? Because US position has always been you're either with us or
Or
against
against us.
us. You
Hmm.
cannot have pursue independent foreign policy. That's not allowed, right?
Hmm.
But India may have differences with China, but that doesn't mean you will screw its relationship with Russia to placate United States. It has to balance out its own national interest. It will not sacrifice its own national interest for the whims of United States, like for example Australia does, because Australia has that, we talk about that white supremacy complex going on here.
Hmm. Yep.
India is not beholden to that, so they can pursue their own independent foreign policy.
Hmm.
So that's why in this right now you are gonna see a lot more criticism of India in the U.S. mainstream
Yes.
media, because suddenly they discover, oh, India is not as democratic as we thought. They have a Hindu nationalist government that's doing horrible things. I mean, when India joined the Quad, all that was sweep under the carpet, right? Like there's no
Hmm.
criticism of India. It was all great. We talk about Indo-Pacific, we talk about Quad, and so it's so obvious what U.S. does is using human rights as a kind of political weapon. As
Like what they do with Burma.
yeah, it's a weaponized tool of U.S. foreign policy. So I mean, like especially that's so transparent to people of the global South. I mean, in
Yep.
US, because people are so brainwashed, they don't realize it. But people outside US, it's like, man, what are you doing? So
Well, I forgot. I gotta thank you. I don't know if the audience knows, but I showed them a clip from one of the anchors from the Republic.
oh
You
yes,
know,
yes. I
yes,
shared
and
on
so
Twitter. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
you got me following the Republic now, so I watch a lot more of their content. And for those who don't know, like the Republic, they regularly have multiple experts from many different countries. And so they're going to have somebody from Russia on one day, somebody from New York, somebody from, uh, wherever. They might
I,
have like 15 different people on at one time, and they're arguing these different points.
I caught a lot of flack from Indian leftists for posting that video because the Republic apparently is very pro Modi, pro BJP, and they see me sharing that video as kind of somehow giving them platform. But look.
What should you only show gravitas?
Yeah, I mean, like the fact is, they might have very bad politics domestically, but what they say about U.S. hegemony and U.S. imperialism, that criticism is
Is
true. I
dead
mean,
on.
that's why there's resonance, right? I mean, the fact that even BJP, the Hindu Nationalist Party, is criticizing U.S. That means that U.S. foreign policy is really fucked up. I
Yeah,
mean, like,
it is. I mean, a lot, and that's the reason why I listen to them. I listen to a bunch of different. I listen to as many foreign reporters as I can that's not mainstream, because you get to hear, even if you can say, oh well, you put it on the Republic that them being more right wing. Well, the guests that they bring on are not, and so when you get to hear the perspectives, you're getting to hear multiple different sides versus watching, say, Al Jazeera, which is going to bring on one person or two people, and you're only hearing it from one side or the other, or a BBC where you're only hearing two perspectives. You either take this one or that one. Whereas, like on the Republic, you're literally hearing 3 or 4 different dimensions to the subject itself.
It's very different from CNN for sure.
Very, very different. It's a lot more verbose, definitely.
We just get Gordon Chan talking about China and North Korea and
that's it.
And I don't even know why Gordon Chan is somehow North Korean expert. The dude is not even Korean. Like people, but just because he has an Asian face, now
it's America. Remember the white supremacy? You got everybody all looks the same. It's just like I say this to people all the time. I say, if you do DNA of most Europeans, and I'm talking about Caucasian Europeans, there's really not very much difference between the DNA sequencing. As you go to Africa. Africa is literally the most diverse continent. But in the Western world, all people of any kind of African descent are all the same. And everybody from Europe is all different. They're all different people.
People in US think Africa is one country, right?
I heard somebody literally say, well, you'd have a better life. You have a better life here in America than you would have in Africa. I'm like, what part of Africa?
Yeah.
How can you make that statement? I mean,
they
Africa has so many countries.
They won't even be able to find Africa on a map.
I mean, these people. I have one last question that I had in the back of my mind that I was like, I got to ask this one. Because Chris reminded me of where does India fit in this equation? What are your thoughts on BRICS and how and its impact on everything? And for those who don't know what BRICS is, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Yeah. And so I was wondering, what do you think is how does this all fit into this change or challenge to the global hegemony right now, dealing with the Western powers and things?
Well, to get back to BRICS, first we have to wait for Bolsonaro to get out of power.
And I don't think that that's too far away, honestly.
Yeah. We that I think that's gonna happen too.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can return to the real BRICS.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I mean, U.S. definitely sees that as a big threat. And right now that's why they help kind of boasted Bolsonaro on his rise to power in
Mm-hmm.
Brazil. That's U.S. make no secret about their support for Bolsonaro's right wing government, and but if you look at the BRICS, right, um the biggest chunk is still China. The
Yeah.
China kind of centers the BRICS, and that's why we are seeing U.S. applying different sanctions against China. They're not talking about extending the sanctions they have on Russia to specific Chinese companies. The unfortunate thing right now is, the BRICS still not wholly independent of U.S. yet.
Mm-hmm.
To give you an example is Huawei. Huawei has been sanctioned by United States for initially for breaking U.S. sanction on Iran, for providing infrastructure, building infrastructure, internet infrastructure in Iran, right? That's what they nabbed the Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou for,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then they just flat out banned Huawei. they stopped. They stopped any. They had a semiconductor ban on Huawei, so not just U.S. semiconductor producer, because right now most of semiconductors actually being fabricated in either South Korea or Taiwan. These companies, Korean company and Taiwan companies, are prohibited from doing business with Huawei. That's how far-reaching
Yeah,
the U.S.
because America's hands up their ass like a puppet.
Exactly. Because if they don't do what America say, they will be sanctioned by U.S. So those will have
Mm-hmm.
so that's how far-reaching U.S. sanction is. So that's why one of the reasons Huawei's cell phone handphone market suffer a big setback, because they still dependent on the Qualcomm chips,
Mm-hmm.
and they depended on even the Huawei's own design chips that have to be manufactured on Taiwan. And and Huawei now, after Biden administration, they receive a temporary reprieve, right, on the Huawei sanction, which means they every 90 days, U.S. government is going to review whether to sanction them or not, and
Mm-hmm.
because of that, because of the Ukraine war, now Huawei is pulling out of Russia because they are afraid that the reprieve is going to can end anytime in the hands of the United States. So this is one way the BRICS is not. When I say BRICS is unfortunately not wholly independent of U.S. yet, because U.S. still have the two pillars of its hegemony, right? The finance and tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
So finance means they can sanction everybody
Yeah.
financially. Tech means they can hold the chokehold, using financial sanctions to prevent semiconductor manufacturer to supply chips, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
And
case against
plus we
Huawei.
got Brazil and South Africa, who
Africa,
still have a lot of ties to U.S.
yes.
businesses and Western businesses.
But but China right now is working very hard on breaking the semiconductor bottleneck right now, because before they, when I said before China was a benefactor of the globalization, that's when China kind of played along with U.S. Back then, when U.S. dominated the global trade, they're like, yeah, everybody, globalization is great. Everybody should adopt it, right? So China went along with that because it was beneficial to China. But once China prospered enough under the globalization scheme, became a threat to the U.S. hegemony. U.S. like, whoa, wait a minute. We need to put on sanctions. We need to put on sanctions on the Chinese companies. Our security threat, right? So China is realizing they cannot depend on U.S.-led globalization platform anymore because of this
China's
policy.
learning the hard lesson, which Russia
Yes,
had to learn.
Yes. And so that is why China right now is plowing a lot of resources into breaking the semiconductor bottleneck. And the reason the US chose a semiconductor ban against Huawei is because this is actually one of the few areas where US still hold a chokehold on China. So once they break through that semiconductor, because right now China could manufacture like up to, I think, like 20 nanometer chips, whereas on Taiwan they can manufacture commercially 7 nanometer chips. So China has that semiconductor gap to close. But once they close it, which I expect will happen in the next 5 years, once that they can close that, they can have an independent tech stack that's impervious to the US sanctions, right? The Huawei, the reason Huawei got targeted because they built their own OS system, so they don't have to depend on the Android system. They don't have to depend on Google anymore, right? They're designing their own chips, so they don't have to depend on US Qualcomm anymore. Like US have no problem with other Chinese cell phone manufacturer like Xiaomi, right? Because Xiaomi is still they're still basically assembling all these US components. US technology.
A lot of the Android phones and stuff that we use.
Yeah, and still on Android platform. So US still profits when Xiaomi makes a sale because a lot of the components, a lot of the technology was US technology, US patent, right? Whereas Huawei trying to go its own way, trying to develop its own independent OS, design its own chips. That's when US like bam.
Whoa, no, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
It reminds me of also the propaganda which they use against Huawei mostly. It was like, well, Huawei has chips in there that are listening to your phones, listen to your conversations. I'm like, well, my phone doesn't have chips from Huawei, and it still does the same shit. What's your reasoning? Because how many times I'm having a conversation with somebody and I'm like, hey, this creamery. And I'm talking about a friend, and next thing you know, as soon as I open up my phone and my search results, it's telling me a discount for that same damn creamery or on my laptop. So I'm like, you telling me Huawei is doing that when I'm seeing the same shit with my damn phone and my laptop?
You know what? I was posting the picture of my cat, right? I adopted a stray cat. I just posted a picture on Twitter, nowhere else. And next thing I know, when I go on my Gmail, I'm getting ads about cat food, about books on cat psychology. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. It's like, I mean, you would even think they're not even supposed to be linked. You know, Twitter
they're
is
not supposed to be
Google, right? But they all freaking do information sharing. Your data is bought and sold. You know, and US government have backdoor to all the US phones, like all the Apples and stuff. So that's why when I talk about US reporting on China, it's projection. It's like we are doing this, so the Chinese got to do the same thing. But let's get the Chinese for what we're doing, because you know we are. And actually, I had a tech expert on my show, a Silk and Steel podcast, talking about this. He actually said one of the reasons US intelligence community really want to shut down Huawei is because you know US can strong arm companies like Apple to open up the back door for them, you know, Apple, Google, and
but they can't do that with Huawei.
Yes, that's why they're like, okay, Huawei is a security threat because because
if we wanted to use say a Huawei device so that we don't have that, so we can basically use that as almost an encrypted line, because they would have to get some. I don't know how you would get a court order to go through China to force somebody's phone records open, but they can do that easily with anything through American.
Yep, that's why they had basically that's why Trump tried to force TikTok to be sold to Microsoft because they're like, okay, TikTok has way too much data, you know, we don't have access to this data, so now they're still in talks to TikTok, talking about Oracle taking over kind of the handling of the TikTok data in US, you know, because Oracle has backdoor with the US security. You know, they can go through Oracle to get access to TikTok user data. So this is what U.S. government is doing.
Well, and that's how it's different. Whenever you even though TikTok is a Chinese through China a Chinese corporation, once you air it into the U.S. and it crosses into being used within the purviews of the U.S., then it changes those dynamics, because then they can say, well, we can shut you down being used in the States if you don't agree to these terms.
And
I gotta,
another thing I need to
mhm,
point out is,
yeah,
with all this talk about, somehow Chinese government is going to have access to your data. Look. If you are a U.S. citizen, should you worry about China, which has no jurisdiction over you, or United
exactly.
States government, who do have jurisdiction over you?
At best, China is going to use it to try to sell products to you. The US is going to use it for God knows what. Because now, not only is it products that they can try to use, now they can try to use it to incriminate you for whatever you say on your phones. And now
Yep.
there's court injunctions. Now the FBI is coming to your house. And I can't remember who exactly was talking about it, but somebody on Meet the Press was talking about how they were going after ISIS and members like that through their social media accounts and different things that they were getting off of their phones. And so they were talking about taking these same practices and using it internally in the US against activists and stuff like that. And so I feel like that should be a much bigger worry to have to worry about than worrying about if China is going to use your data to sell you some new cat food, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have another book recommendation.
Sure.
Surveillance Valley, the secret military history of the internet. It's by my friend Yasha Levine, and he actually digged up the whole history of the internet when U.S. military funded the development of internet because they planned to have a surveillance network to
Surveillance
keep.
Valley.
Yep.
I'm trying to get that down also
Yeah.
so I could take a look at that.
Surveillance Valley, the secret military history of the internet. It was
Yep,
published
there it
around
is.
2018 by Yasha Levine, who is an
Yep.
independent journalist. And he, so basically, the internet was born from the U.S. military Pentagon effort to develop a surveillance network where they can nip any kind of subversive elements in the butt, so they can have a better surveillance over
Mm-hmm.
all these different groups in United States, and that's originally how internet was designed for. And now
Mm-hmm.
it's just people are surprised to discover all these surveillance, but no, that was what internet was built for
Yep.
originally. And
Mm-hmm.
he used an example which I didn't even think about. It's like how they can track people, like if two people are having, if for example extramarital affairs, they would know why. Now they can just track your cell phone. If your
Well,
cell
yeah, there's been more and more that's been happening.
right, because they can just track, because for your cell phone signal they know your location. And if two phones who never had some contact before suddenly end up in some motel somewhere for like a couple hours on a
What
weekend.
did I don't know, did you hear about what happened with the Fitbit thing where the lady was able to somehow hear what was going on through the Fitbit somehow and
Mhm.
was able to tell that her husband was cheating through
Wow.
his Fitbit?
Maybe she installed some kind of software, like I
Well, there
know.
are spyware softwares all
Yes,
over the place that you can easily
yes,
get a hold of
yes,
and put into somebody's phone. There's
yes.
also cloning of phones and
Yep,
all kind of stuff that's
yep,
out now.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got a comment for you that I thought was pretty interesting. Being Worthy, thank you for joining us, says in 2011, they were saying China was spying on its citizens and activists and penalized and threatened stuff with Google. But 2 years later, Snowden.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's all projection, man. When U.S. media talk about China, it's all projection, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I stay with the mindset all of these nations, all major nations are spying on their people to some degree.
Yep,
It's just a
yep,
matter of what they're doing with that and
yep,
how massive the crackdown is
yep.
or not. The only difference between the U.S. is the U.S. says everybody else is doing it, not us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
China doesn't deny, hey, yeah, we do censor certain things. We don't allow this. Russia will say, okay, yeah, I mean, that dude might have disappeared and we won't confirm or deny if we had anything to do with it. The US is the one that acts like they're so innocent.
Yeah, this is how I try to present it to the U.S. audience, right? I'm assuming most people, listeners, are U.S. citizens. Like
Most are.
yeah, because we are always presented in U.S. media as how somehow the rise of China is this existential threat because China is going to read our data, it's going to spy on us, whatever. But whatever China does, you agree or disagree, mostly impact Chinese citizens inside China. We in the US or we of US citizens, Chinese government don't have jurisdiction over us. Like what can they do with our data, right? But US government who do have access to our data, they can do a lot of shit to us. That is the
Even
difference.
if we're not in the US, I mean,
Exactly.
going into Julian Assange.
Yep.
Because I mean, how more of an intrusive government are you that you are literally trying to track down somebody and treat him as a traitor who is not even a citizen to your country?
He's
How
an
does he?
Australian citizen. Yeah. And this freaking Australia is protesting about how China is mistreating its own journalists. Like, dude, you said nothing about your own citizen Assange just because it's a U.S. that's doing it. But yeah, that's
well, they know they better not say anything, and it goes to the same thing. I'm trying to remember which one of the protests that was going on not that long ago where they were literally taking down, like the local police was literally taking down everybody's names, and saying, hey, these people are now on list. And so a lot of times you don't find out this stuff until you try to go and update your passport or you try to hop on a flight and then you find out, oh crap, I'm on some kind of watch list now.
Another white supremacy angle. Did you know that Assange is actually an anglicized Chinese last name? It's because Julian Assange got his last name from his adopted stepfather, who is has distant Chinese ancestry. But originally, when when their Chinese ancestor migrated to Australia, like 100 years ago, they had to anglicize their Chinese name. So before it was Asan, but they made it into Assange, so it sounds more European.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting. I'm gonna have to look more into that. I guess that was, most of my questions. We literally got, I didn't know how long I was going to be able to have you, but we literally hit most of the stuff that I want to get to. I can't think of anything else right now, but I know as more stuff comes up, I definitely do want to have you back and talk to you more. Awesome. Would you be up for that?
Yeah, for sure. Right now I'm just hungry. I need to eat lunch.
I gotta do the same thing. Gotta fold some laundry and stuff like that. Get myself prepped for work in the morning. But can you let everybody? I know I said it earlier, and if you guys freeze frame on it at the beginning, you guys can see most of his links and stuff. I'll go back in and re-update them into the comment section if I didn't put them in there. I don't remember. It's been like 2 weeks since I set this up, but I will go back and put that in after this. But could you let the people know where they can get a hold of you, where they can hear your content? If you stream at certain times, what's a good time for them to try to find you? Keep in mind, if you guys are on the East Coast, I believe there's a 12-hour
difference. Yeah,
12 hour. Yes. Yeah. So 10 and 10. So if it's 10 a.m. where he's at, it's 10 p.m. where you're at.
Yeah. So I do have a YouTube channel, just Carl Zod. As I post a lot of my interviews there. There's a free content. I also shit post a lot on Twitter. People are welcome to check out my Twitter.
Oh yeah, I have you followed, and I have the notifications on for whenever you put something out.
So Carl, just my name, Carl Za, one word. That's my Twitter handle, and I also post on Facebook. You can probably find me on Facebook. I do have my podcast, Silk and Steel podcast. Most of my free stuff is freely available on YouTube and also on different podcasting platform, iTunes, Spotify. But I have a Patreon site. That's
Oh
how
yeah,
I
yeah,
support.
yes. Let us
That's
know.
how I
Yeah.
support myself and my family on Bali. So people are welcome to check it out. Silk and Steel podcast on Patreon. I have a lot of the Patreon only content there. I talk about I had recently. I'm doing a series on the Chinese Civil War, and another series on the Golden Triangle Opium series, which I talk about.
Yeah, I want to. I'm gonna be on that one. I'm gonna be checking that shit out.
Because I'm talking about how CIA turned the area of northern Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, China, this area into the world's #1 production base of opium and heroin before the NATO occupation of Afghanistan. So before
Yeah, because
NATO,
Afghanistan became their next
yeah,
mule.
yeah. So it's funny how that turns out. Whenever the U.S. military, CIA goes, the drug trade goes with it. So I talk about that. How the to tie together kind of the history of colonialism with the opium trade and how CIA kind of inherited that colonial legacy and developed even further, and how that actually eventually that will feed back to the U.S. own opiate crisis when U.S. GIs in the Vietnam War will get hooked on heroin being produced in Golden Triangle by these CIA proxies, and then bring that back to U.S. So this series spans like a period of 150 years, with many characters. Welcome to check it out, and I'm gonna start doing another episode detailing kind of the China-Russia relation from the history. So there's a lot of history stuff, history, culture, politics. That's what I focus on. People, welcome to check it out. Patreon, Silk and Steel podcast.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. I mean, that's astounding. I'm a history nerd. I mean, I studied a lot of ancient history, going all the way back from like Sumeria, and
Nice.
like literally going back like very far. But let's just say very far back.
Yeah, I actually have another project to do a chronological retelling of Chinese history from like way back from
well, that's the part which I want to get that connection, because that's where things get a little hazy for me, finding the exact beginnings. I know a little bit from some of the different dynasties when they started, but I'm trying to find like concrete information on like the early migrations into China and when everything got formalized, because I know how it starts breaking up between China, when China starts separating into Japan, and then all of these other areas start becoming nations separately.
I started from the Big Bang, from the Big Bang,
wow.
like literally the Big Bang to I started with the Chinese mythology, which Big Bang plays part into it, and from there to right now, I'm still at 2000 BC. I'm still at no. I moved beyond 2000. No. I covered the first 1,000 years of history.
You're in AD now.
I'm 1000 BC. Like I'm still at 1000 BC. Eventually, I'll make my way. I'm not in a hurry. I'm gonna. This is a long project. So eventually, I get to the modern era. So in the meantime, I also have a different thread on modern history, on like the Chinese Communist Revolution and the Sino-Japanese War, World War II, that kind of stuff. Because I know people can't wait for me to march.
Yeah, everybody just wants you to jump up to Mao. They're like, all right, I'm done with this stuff. Get up to Mao Zedong now. I mean, this is it's all fascinating, because like I know I've studied a decent amount into Japanese mythology, of the, I guess what we call it, the start of the world and all that things like that. So I've studied some of Japanese mythology, what they understand. I've studied Greek mythology quite a bit, and the same with Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, going into all those different things. And then, like I study a lot into the Bible. So, all those things all intertwined and intermingled. And also the theologies and the similarities between a lot of the religions is something that I always found interesting. So yeah, I definitely want to have you back, and I'll probably be in your DM asking you a lot of questions too. Anyway, and I look forward to for you guys who are on Twitter. Make sure you guys follow Carl, and also hop into his spaces every now and then. He's very open, and lets everybody come up and speak, and so it's a lot of good discussions that, to have there. Make sure also everybody get over, and you guys want to hear and learn more of this information, go over to his Patreon. Show the man some love. As you guys can hear, he got a little guy in the background that we got to make sure to help that little guy grow up nice and strong. And much thank you to you. Thank you to your wife for sparing you for a couple of hours for me. I definitely appreciate that. Beautiful pictures, by the way, of you guys' wedding photo. I thought that was amazing. And a big shout out to all my friends out there in the chat: Misha, Variant, Hank Q, Memeworthy, everybody, Hamza, everybody out there. And so I'm gonna let this man go. I don't want to keep him any longer, but thank you so much again. It was my honor to have you on my show, and I look forward to being able to see you again. Oh, especially with all these things, how they've been going on. I mean, I don't know too many people who pay as close attention to the issues that are going on in that part of the region, and I'd like to know more so I could be able to have you and another colleague on to be able to go back and forth and really get to just hear it all. I mean, it's super informative and entertaining for me. I love it. So I appreciate you, Carl. I will make sure to reach out to you very, very soon.
Awesome.
All right. Have a good one, brother.
All right, man. I gotta go eat.
All right.